Welcome to Peeking Over the Fence, a podcast where we share real stories of healing and hope. We are your hosts, Missy and Karen, and we're so glad you're here.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of Peeking Over the Fence with Karen and Missy. Missy and I are cousins. We've been on a journey together for a long time, and we believe that God has brought us here today to start a podcast. Today's podcast, our very first podcast, is very special. Missy is going to be telling a part of her story that brought her to God. Um, Missy, would you like to share?
Sure. So welcome everybody. I am so excited and very nervous to do this. Karen and I have had so many conversations about this and how nervous I am. And I'm just grateful that I get to do this with you, Karen. And
Yeah, I'm so proud of you for sharing. I know how sacred this is. I know how nervous you were about putting this precious story that's so dear to your heart out. And I'm so proud of you
yeah,
for this.
and I'm grateful that I feel like in a safe, warm place that I can do this. And I just want to start off by saying this is a heavy topic. I'm going to talk to you about the loss of my daughter, Aubrey, the stillbirth, and my experience and what we went through. And as heavy as that topic is, I do hope that you walk away from this conversation with a sense of feeling seen if you've been through this before. There's not one woman that either Karen and I know that has not been touched by loss, infertility, miscarriage, stillbirth, infant loss. It's just a huge topic that I think, thank God has been talked about a lot more. And the reason that we're choosing this as our first episode is because on December 14th, a group that is just very near and dear to our family's heart is called the Compassionate Friends. And they're a worldwide organization that does a candle lighting in every time zone starting at 7 p.m. on December 14th, as I said. And honestly, without that group, I'm not sure where we would be. Honestly, they really did. They sent us a life raft in a very, very difficult time for us. So,
Missy, why
yeah.
why don't you tell just to go back and tell how you found out about this group, like what was
Yeah.
going on and how you actually found out about the group.
Sure. So I think to do that, I need to start at the beginning. So I was 8 months pregnant with Aubrey. She was our third baby. We already had two older kids and we were just excited. Like we were preparing for her. And our two older kids were just, we took them to classes and just did all the things to prepare them for having a little sister. And so, without going into all the details, I'm going to tell you how we found out that she was gone. And so the night before we lost her, I went to the hospital. I was having contractions and wasn't progressing. And so they sent us home and they said, just go home and prepare your kids and, get your house ready and get babysitters lined up, pack your bag, all kinds of stuff, because you'll be back, within the day or two. And so that night we went home, we slept, got up the next day, and I hit the ground running and did all the things, cleaned the house, packed the clothes, and all the things. And that night when I sat down, I didn't feel Aubrey moving. And I didn't think anything of it. I just thought she was moving during the day while I was, running around taking care of the kids. And so I sat down, and it's crazy how our mind works, because I clearly remember eating a bowl of honeycombs cereal and thinking, okay, I'm going to eat something and she's going to start moving around, and nothing happened. So I woke Steve up and I said, it's probably nothing, but we should probably go get checked out. Maybe there's something going on. I know as soon as we get to the hospital, she's going to start moving around. And we went to the hospital, and the nurse that I had the night before, this beautiful woman, she was just like a grandma, and she put the monitors on me and she started moving it around, and she started to get tears in her eyes. And she knew already. She knew. I didn't. I just was like, okay, she's just, moving the monitor around. And she got a look on her face and she said, I'll be right back. So she left, and about 6 doctors came in. With a machine, with a sonogram machine. Sorry, I thought I was prepared to talk about this. This is the first time that I'm saying out loud all the details, So we watched all the nurses and the doctors come in with this machine. There was probably 6 or 7 professionals in there, and they got the sonogram machine out and they started moving it around. And the doctor said, I'm so sorry. There's nothing we can do. She's gone. And I thought, okay, they're gonna take me up for a C-section. They're gonna, do all these things. And I'm just sitting in the bed like, okay, do something. And I said that out loud. I said, do something. And they said, I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do. There is no heartbeat. And I clearly remember thinking like it was like I left my body. And I said to Steve, I said, okay, everything's going to be okay. We're going to go home and, get the kids up and do all the things. And he's looking at me like, we can't leave. And I, in backtracking, he was at the end of the bed staring at the machine when the doctor was, looking for the heartbeat. And when they said she was gone, his knees buckled. And it was like the life was sucked out of him, and seeing him react that way made me feel like I needed to take care of him. And it was like in that moment, I wanted to do something, but I couldn't get away from it. I didn't want her to leave, but also she was still in my belly, it was a very surreal moment. And so we sat in the hospital. We called our families. We had to call and tell everybody what was going on. And I remember over the hours, people were showing up and people would leave, and people would show up and people would leave. And then, I'm sorry, one sec. We're going to edit that part out. So, I already have cats. And so it was ironic because the
This is great. I don't think we should edit it. I don't think we should edit it.
This is real life, guys. So anyway, Ironically, to me, the women in my life that like all the men left. My dad, God bless him, couldn't handle seeing me in the bed. And when I said that, they were inducing me and I had to give birth, he couldn't handle it. And, the people that stayed was Steve. Of course, he didn't leave my side. But my grandmother, my meemaw, my mother-in-law, my mom, and my aunt and my cousin, they all stayed and they all got to see her and they all got to meet her. And that to me is just such a precious gift. Because, on the surface, it looks like I have 3 kids and, you know, but they witnessed that I have 4 babies. So, they got to see her beautiful face and they got to hold her before the death set in. And by the time we got her and they brought her to us, that had set in the discoloration and the things that you witness with a stillbirth. And we got to hold her. And I honestly, to this day, when I talk about it, I can feel her head on my chest. It's something a feeling that has never left me. And so, after many hours of labor, she was born and we got to hold her. And then we were discharged and they just let us leave, and we were just like, what do we do next? Like, we don't know we're not sure what to do with this. We don't know. I mean, we had a funeral, we buried her, we had a beautiful service, and then everybody went on with their lives and we were just sitting there like, we don't know what to do. So, I mean, I remember clearly just, where my mind was and how unhealthy things were and that I didn't have the resources. No one told me to go to a counselor. I didn't know what to do. And I remember, going to my 6-week checkup and my doctor, who I loved, who delivered my other daughter. And we went back and it was a 15-minute appointment. He didn't ask how we were doing mentally. And he said, everything's fine and let us go. And we just sat there stunned, like, nothing. You're not gonna offer us anything. And so we tried our best to get back into life. Steve went back to work, but I was really struggling. As we had talked about so many times, the hormones set in and, I'm trying to recover from having birth. And there was still like, all these doubts in my mind. Is there something that I did wrong? What could have I done better? How could I have prevented it? And so we started searching. And I remember going to the library and this person came up to me and I was looking at books on grief. And to this day, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, but they saw the books that I was looking at and they came up to me and said, like, I think you could use this group. And on this piece of paper, it said the Compassionate Friends, and it had the name of the leader on there, the lady that was running the group and her phone number. And I had no idea what it was. Like the person just dropped it and like they were gone. It was like, honestly, I truly believe it was a gift from God that used this person to help us. And I called the number and found out that they were a group that they were a support group for people that lost children. And it's for any age group, any stage of life that the child has passed. And at the time, there were several people in the group that had stillbirth, had an infant loss. And they only met once a month. But Lynette, who was running the group at the time, she could hear it in my voice that we needed support. And she pulled a group together for us. And we met at her house, and it was what we needed. It was what saved us, because we were drowning in sorrow, and Steve didn't know what to do to help me while he was grieving himself. So they really did. And that's how we came to know the Compassionate Friends. We went there for several years. We got to meet amazing people. We felt like we could laugh with them, and they didn't think we were crazy. It was what we needed. It was definitely a lifeline.
And Missy, you said that group, they're worldwide.
Yes, they're a worldwide group. They have chapters in almost every state. Um, and across they're I know they're around the world, because the lighting is a worldwide candle lighting, and it's so interesting to go on their page and see people commenting from all over the world. It's heartbreaking.
What is the name of the group again?
It's called the Compassionate Friends, and you definitely look up to see if there's a chapter in your area, if that is something that you need. I think that there are definitely more resources now than there were, although I'm not positive. And this is definitely something that I tell everybody about. Like, look at, if I meet someone that's had a loss, obviously I give them my number and do everything that I can to help them. But if there is some sort of support group, I always encourage to be around people that can truly understand what you're going through.
Missy, what were some of the things that you remember, like things people did that were helpful
Mhm.
or that were not helpful and actually hurtful? Um,
Right.
can you talk, like, because, you know, we may not have gone through that ourselves, but we all know people that have, and it's very hard to know how to respond to that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that the main thing is just being there, just picking up, doing simple little things that I just physically couldn't do. I mean, I felt like a zombie. I felt like, I'm responsible for my other two children, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. Um, I think that, just do something. When you ask somebody, what can I do for you? They're going to say, I'm fine, or I don't know. Just do something, a meal, if they have other children, ask to babysit, just jump in any way that you can. I think, we all try to say things to make people feel better. And, sometimes those words hurt. And the last thing I wanted to hear at that time is, if it was so and so, they wouldn't be able to handle it. They're doing so well, or, it's God's will. And, I didn't want to hear those things. I just
Mhm.
wanted my baby. I wanted answers. I wanted to understand why. Um, I met one of the best people that I know, one of my best friends during that time. Like, that was another um, gift from God, because I met one of my best friends during that time, because our kids were in the same preschool together, and she
Mm.
just jumped in. She didn't ask questions. She just jumped in. She took Billy and Cassie and did things with them, and made us dinner, and just got me through. And she's another one. I don't think I would have gotten through that time without her. She really just jumped in and did those things. So I think it's just a matter of being kind. You don't need to say a lot of words. Sometimes you just have to sit there and listen,
Mhm.
um, and say their names. Like, don't forget, like, you're not going to remind them. I promise you, they have not forgotten. You're not going to remind them of the pain. You're not going to remind them of what they went through. They may not have had a name. They may have passed as a miscarriage, but letting somebody know that you remember it is one of the biggest gifts you can give somebody that has gone through it.
Mm-hmm. And Missy, I know we've had lots of conversations over the however many years that we've sort of connected on our Jesus journey, if you will,
Yeah.
about how in your darkest moments, when you were in the pit and you could barely get yourself up
Mhm.
to shower, to eat, to function, where when you look back, you can see where God was
Yeah.
and how. And can you touch on some of those things when you were able to look back?
Oh, sure.
Mhm.
So I could tell you that from 1999, we lost Aubrey June 22nd. Well, she passed on June 21st, 1999, and I gave birth to her on June 22nd. And from 1999 to 2015, my identity was a woman who experienced child loss. And I lived that way every single day, and it caused anxiety and depression, and um, it really played a huge toll mentally. And I guess in 2015, early in 2015, I just felt this big call on my heart, like God was pulling me to church. And I went to a brand new church by myself. And it started from there. It's just started this journey of healing. And I, I've reached out to you several times, and I was just like, wanted to know more about God. And, I knew him as something to fear my whole life. I did not have a relationship with him. I didn't know his character. I didn't think of him as a father figure or a friend. And I know I started asking you questions, and we would send songs back and forth to each other. And it was just, it was so exciting to get to know God in a different way. And I picked up a Bible study book, and it was by Angie Smith, and it was called Seamless. And I don't know why I picked this up. I didn't know anything about her. I just thought, oh, this is a pretty book. And I thought that it was like, it's cute. And so I started doing it, and I found out that she had a daughter named Audrey who died. Yeah, who died not long after she gave birth. And in the book, she wrote this paragraph that just hit me so hard. And it was a point for me that I had to make a decision. And if it's okay, if I could read
Oh,
just,
please, yes.
yeah. So it's called Seamless. It's by Angie Smith. And she said, I believe God is good even when I don't understand all the particulars of his decisions. I don't say this flippantly. I say it as a woman who has stood, I haven't read this in a while, in a cemetery while her daughter was being buried. And with the thud of every shovelful of dirt that separated us, I had a decision to make about the God who allowed it. Either he loves me or he doesn't. Either he's good or he's not. I decided to believe God is good and he loves me. It wasn't a decision based on emotion or shallow hope. It was quite simply the only place I found safe enough to rest my weary bones.
That's beautiful.
And at that moment, everything changed. I decided to trust him. And and the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, I'm going to heal you from losing her, but I'm also going to heal you from a lot of other things. And it's going to hurt. And
What
it's
year was that, Missy? That was what, 2000?
that was 2015.
Yeah.
And,
Here
you
we
know,
2025. Yeah.
and it's hurt. I'm telling you, it's hurt. Wow, he was not lying, but he also, the Holy Spirit said, I want you to write down every time that I that you can remember me being there. And the blessings that I gave to you during that time. And when I wrote that all down, I saw how much he cared for me. And one of the places, and that paragraph reminded me so much. I was going back to church, or going to church at that time, and laying on the pew after the service was over and not wanting to leave, because I just felt like that was the only place I could just let go. And Father Vincent, God bless him, he married us. He came to the hospital when Aubrey died. He blessed her. He did the funeral service. He did it all. And he would sit with me and talk. And the fact that he did those things and, was a blessing. The fact that, I met one of my very best friends during that time. The person that he brought to us that showed us we're compassionate friends. It was blessing after blessing after blessing. And it was just it was like one of those moments. It was just like, it hit me like a ton of bricks that, God was there. And, but it's been a long 10 years. Like, it's been a very long 10 years. I mean, the things that I've been through, and and I say this wholeheartedly now, knowing God's character. When he promises you something, he's gonna deliver. But the enemy, the devil, he will do everything in his power to stop you. And I kept thinking, like, all right, God, is this it? Am I supposed to write a book? Am I supposed to start a support group? Am I supposed to do this or that? I need to help other women that have been through this. Like, what is it that you want me to do? And it was almost like he was holding me back. Like, you're not ready yet. Like, you're not ready. And I had to go through a lot of different circumstances and isolation to really understand that there is no perfect time. There's just no perfect time. Like, I kept waiting for this time. Okay, well, I'm going to have beautiful hair, and it's going to be,
Your hair is beautiful.
or, well, it's fallen out, and I'm glad I have some on my head, because,
Here we go. Yeah.
the amount that's on the floor in the shower after I'm done is like, Steve's like, I don't know how you're bald, but, I'm going to be skinny, and it's like, I'm going to be happy, and it's going to be the perfect time. And there is no perfect time. And, I can tell you that when this showed up in our lives, when we started talking about this, I hesitated. I'm like, it's not time yet. I'm not
Are you
ready.
talking about the podcast?
Podcast. Like, when we started talking about this, we were like, this isn't it.
We've been to writing conferences. We've been to, all
Like,
sorts
this,
of.
like, what is this? Like, and then, but we both were like, wait a minute, like, this is it. Like, this is what we're supposed to do. And so the enemy has worked really hard over 10 years to get me not to talk and to hold me down. And I can say that I'm coming to you right now as a woman who literally just fought for her life. Like, I really did go through it the past 4 years. And
In every way,
in every way,
physically, emotionally, spiritually,
all of it.
every way. Yep.
And
You had a target on your back. The
had a
enemy.
target.
Yep.
And I know now that there's no perfect time, and I'm broken, I'm bruised, I'm battered from the past, several years. It's been really rough. And that's another topic. Like that's a whole nother episode. That might be a whole series. But um, you know, I just know now that, I know the truth. I know what the enemy does. I know now that when I was isolated, when I was sick and I was down, that he used depression and anxiety and my past and all kinds of things to keep me down. And now I'm just like, I got your number, buddy. Like I know like this is not how it's going to be. And I'm gonna show up in my pajamas on a podcast.
I know even this past week, like he was oppressing you, and then you
Right.
were like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
I recognize this.
right.
Right. And then you
So
prayed out of it, and then you called and you're like, we have to do that this week. Like we
right,
have to do it this week.
right.
And and then all the technical difficulties today. I mean,
Right,
I have totally locked myself out of my computer.
right,
And then you know what we did? We prayed, and then because I couldn't get onto my
right,
phone, I couldn't get over and then here we
right.
are. So it's like
And
we have to remember that God will always win. We have
right.
when you're walking in his will, there's an army of angels around you,
Yeah,
and we have to fight and fight for each other.
absolutely.
Mhm.
I honestly wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the people in my life who pray.
Mhm.
I just know that 100%. Like I remember being at my lowest moments and reaching out and saying, please pray for me. I don't have the words. And getting through the night. And sometimes that's what it takes is just one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. And, it took me a very long time. When I tell you that since 1999, what a journey it's not been overnight. I mean, when
Mm-mm.
Aubrey died, the old me died with her. I was, God has created a whole new person from that moment on. And it's like 26 years of growing me and building me into where I'm at now. And I can honestly say right now with pure confidence, like I know that Aubrey died in the safest place here on earth, and she went right to Jesus. And why wouldn't you want that for your child? Yes, I wanted her here. Yes, the circumstances to be different. I cry, thinking about who she would be at 5 years old, at 15 years old, at 26 years old. Like, yes, of course I think about those things, but the comfort of knowing that she is okay, that she's in heaven, she's got a job up there, and it's not to take care of me. I don't think of her, as an angel that's always around me. I think of her up there just busy doing things, taking care of people, and, you know, just up there busy. I love to think of her that way. And then, you know, the hope of heaven, like that gives me of knowing that I'm going to see her again. And that gives me permission. And again, it's taken me a long time to get to this point because I lived in grief and depression for a good 10 years or longer than that, whatever the math is of 1999 to 2015. Do the math, whatever that is. Don't ask me to do that right now. But I lived in that role for a long time in the depression and the grief and the anxiety. And once I gave it over to God, it gave me permission to live my life here and to be happy and to be able to smile and to be able to count the blessings around me. My life has been so, so blessed. I mean, I don't deserve it in any way. It's just been so, so many blessings, but it
Right.
has,
And Right. And it doesn't mean that you don't have your moments and you don't cry. I mean, we saw, as you told the
Right.
story, when you tap back into it, right?
Mhm.
But
Right.
you're allowing yourself to feel full on joy and to live your life.
Right.
And, you'll always have that, you know,
Right. And I
just,
think it's important to feel both of it. I
yeah.
think it's important to not run from the grief, but don't run from joy either, because it can exist. Both of them can exist. And you're cheating yourself and you're cheating the people around you to
Mhm.
not be fully present in this life. It really, and I get it. I understand it. I did it for so many years, but my biggest advice is ask for help,
Mhm.
is
And
keep
God will meet you where you're at, in the pit where
absolutely.
you're at. And, we are starting an Instagram and we have our social media.
Mm-hmm.
You can always reach out to us for
Please. Yeah.
resources. We're going to have on the 14th, is it the 14th? We're going to
Yeah.
have a candle if you want to write your baby's name in the comments.
Yes.
Um, we absolutely. And then, Missy, one thing that I know that we've talked a whole lot about, and but we didn't mention as you were telling your story. I wanted to back up a little bit to, um, I know this happens a lot when your sister-in-law Nicole was pregnant the
Mhm.
same time,
Yeah.
and how that, and I know that you two recently had a conversation
Mm-hmm.
and how that affected you and how it affected her and
Right.
how it affected everyone, the family.
Right.
Are you okay talking about that?
Oh, yeah. And
I
I,
think
I actually asked my sister-in-law if it was okay if we talked about it. And ironically, we haven't talked about it, that which is so
in
weird.
26 years.
In 26
And you
years,
guys
I'm
are you
like,
guys are close.
yeah. And I'm like, I called
Right.
her and I said, I just can't believe, I can't believe we haven't had this conversation.
Mhm.
And, I thought about it, and she was pregnant at the same time. Actually, two of my sister-in-laws, Steve's sister, was pregnant at the same time as well. And, I remember with Nicole that I didn't want to be around pregnant people. It wasn't anything to do with her. It wasn't anything to do with my other sister-in-law. It was, I didn't want to be around pregnant people. It was too hard. It was just too hard. And for many reasons, I didn't want to remind them of something that could happen. I didn't want to be reminded of the fact that Aubrey wasn't with me. Not that I didn't, wasn't always thinking that, but, you know, it was hard. And so we had a conversation about it. And, I got to understand what it felt for her, and, what she was going through, because not only was she afraid for my niece, you know, she felt guilty. And I that's terrible. That's a terrible feeling to have. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are in the similar situation, and they don't know how to handle it. And all I can say is talk to each other, is just keep talking to each other and be sympathetic to each other. I didn't have the mind space or the energy to think of anybody else at that time. Um, but what a huge blessing we had in that conversation, you know, because and she thought that when I looked at my niece, that I always thought of Aubrey. And the way the mind works is crazy, because I never even think of it that way. I never, when I see my niece, I just see my niece. And,
Right.
when I really think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, they are the same age. But, um, you know, I love her dearly. She's a sweetheart. And, but it was such a blessing to have that conversation with my sister-in-law. And it was like a weight was lifted off both of us, having a conversation that has not affected our relationship in any way, but it definitely was something that affected our relationship years ago.
Mhm. And yeah. And I think a lot of families go through that,
Mhm.
friends, and, especially when you're all having babies at the same time. And then,
Right.
but I think this has been amazing.
It's,
And I think we weren't sure, we thought this might be a practice, but I think that it went great.
I think so
And
too.
thank you so much for sharing. And our podcast, it's going to be stories like this. We're going to have guests with many, many different stories.
Mhm.
Um, but and then we have other guests scheduled that have had losses as well. Um, and so we hope that you all will join us and that you have seen the light of Jesus through Missy's story. Um, we knew that we needed to lead with this. Um, and do you have anything to add, Missy?
Just, I'm so grateful that we jumped in. I'm gonna we're gonna hit the share button on this, and we're gonna both run and hide under the blankets because I know us, and it's gonna be scary. But my biggest prayer for this podcast is that it hits the people that need to hear it. It's not going to be for everybody. Every topic we talk about is not going to be for everybody, but I pray that it hits the people and it's shared with the people that really truly need it.
And
Thank
Missy, I like just one more thing
you.
when we were talking about doing this and you were really you said, I can't stand the idea
Mm,
of someone scrolling past this because
right.
it's so sacred.
Yeah, like I
And
said, this is really the first time that there's people in my life that know the details of Aubrey and, the
right.
story of her. But, I see, you see reels on Instagram and of people that have had losses, and nothing would break my heart more than someone seeing it and just scrolling past.
Mhm.
Because I've held her so close to me. I've protected her and her story because it's just been so impactful in my life. Um, but I know it's not going to be for everybody, and that's
Right, just
okay.
the one, right? Just the
It's
one.
one, and
Telling the story that you needed to hear.
right,
Mhm.
because there were people that came into my life who were brave enough to tell their story and to reach out, and that's what saved me. And if there's one person in the world that this talks to their heart and they feel not alone, then it's worth it. And please reach out if there's any way that we can help and send you some resources or just pray for you. Um, please leave us a comment and reach out to us. We'll be happy to add you to a prayer list. And all are welcome. And this is what peeking over the fence is about. Like, everybody's welcome. So I
Right.
hope
No
that,
matter where you're at, you're
right.
welcome. Everybody has a story and a journey. And then also find us on Instagram, Peeking Over the Fence.
Mhm.
And there'll be we'll have a candle on for the 14th if
Mhm.
you want to write your baby's name.
Yeah. So thank you for allowing me to share about
Thank you,
Aubrey.
Missy. That was beautiful.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Bye.